Hi, welcome to another episode of Photoshop Lightroom TV. I'm your host Marek Mularczyk from sitetrain.co.uk. Now welcome to episode 21 of Photoshop Lightroom TV. Today I'm going to talk about Adobe Forums. Now if you have any questions, if you have any problems with any of Adobe products, this is probably the best place to find the answers. Adobe Forums is a fantastic part of Adobe website dedicated to all Adobe products. There are separate forums for Photoshop, for Lightroom, for Bridge. There's a forum for Photoshop on Windows and on a Mac, and there's loads of people on there. If you have any questions, just go to the forum. Now you will need to have an Adobe account to post questions. Adobe account is free, anyone can register for an Adobe account. So put a question on there, and it's definitely that someone will answer. People that can be found on the forums are people who work for Adobe, people who are Adobe certified instructors like myself. You can find me on Adobe Forums very often, on Photoshop and Lightroom forums. Also people who are graphic designers, web designers, they're on the forums and they're always willing to help. Okay. This is probably the best place to find the answers. Recently I was on a forum and there was someone who had some problems with the tabs in Photoshop. So he posted a question. As I was on the forum, I quickly replied to him and helped him to solve the problem. Now he was amazed that he got the problem solved so quickly. So sometimes you can get a question replies in a matter of minutes. He said that he spent days trying to sort it out, and we managed to get it solved together on Adobe Forums in a matter of minutes. So this is a fantastic solution. Now let me show you a bit of Adobe Forums. So let's have a look on this first tutorial. Okay, I will see you in a few minutes. Okay, here I am in the web browser this time, and I'm going to show you a couple of things about Adobe Forums. Adobe Forums, I'm in here. There's a separate forum for each Adobe application. So you can find forums for Photoshop and for Lightroom and all the other products. There are separate forums for Dreamweaver and Flash and even Camera. So I'm going to jump into Adobe Photoshop forum. Okay, so I'll show you the Photoshop forum here. And if you want to post, this is a separate forum for Windows and for Mac. I'm going to jump into Windows, mostly because there are more discussions in here. So just jump in here. Now to post the questions, you will need to have an Adobe account. But even if you don't have Adobe account, you can still watch, read it here, read the questions, and this is also a great place to learn. If you want to learn more about Adobe software, you can just come in here and read the post. I'm very often on Adobe Forums as well, helping other people to find the solutions to their problems. This was a quick overview of Adobe Forums. Let's get back to studio. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. This was a tutorial on using Adobe Forums. Great. Let's move on to our tip of the week. This time we'll have tip of the week earlier than usual. And this time I'm going to show you a tip of the week. My tip of the week will be a tip inside Adobe Bridge. We'll have a look on it and we'll be back in just a moment with another tutorial. Okay. So let's have a look on tip of the week in Adobe Bridge. Okay, here we are inside Adobe Bridge this time, and I've got an image that I was using recently in one of the previous episodes to develop it, or edit it, inside Adobe Camera Raw, inside Adobe Bridge. Okay, this image here. Now, as you already know from the previous episodes, you can easily edit images in Adobe Camera Raw within Adobe Bridge. Now, if you look on this image, you can see this icon here, which means that this image has been developed and there are some settings applied to it. I just applied one of the presets that I used before. Okay, and if I just open it in Camera Raw, we can see this image, and I'm going to show you what I applied here. I just used a preset I've previously created called Vignette 2010-10. Okay, I'm just going to cancel that, and if you right click on the image in here, there's an option down here called Develop Settings. Okay, that's where you can quickly apply these develop settings. So for example, I can quickly apply black and white develop setting to turn this image into a black and white, and boom, it's done. This is the preset from Adobe Camera Raw. You can find all these presets inside Adobe Camera Raw. Now, if I'm not happy with that, I can also right-click on the image, go to Develop Settings, and Clear Settings. Okay, this will remove all the settings. Now I'm back to the original image. That's how this raw file looked, because this is a raw image. There are no icons here, which means this is the original raw image, straight from the camera. So if I want to apply one of the presets, I can right-click on this image, go to Develop Settings, and apply Vignette 2010 and 10. That's how you can quickly apply any adjustments to any number of images. You could take the whole folder of images, select them all, and apply this preset to 10, 20, or even 100 or 200 images at the same time. Okay, and then when you're done, you can quickly export them from Adobe Bridge. Okay, this was a quick tip for you in Adobe Bridge and Camera Raw. So let's get back to the studio. Okay, this was the tip of the week in Adobe Bridge. I hope you enjoyed it. Now I've got one more tutorial for you, but before, another tip, this time in photography, because this is a Photoshop Lightroom TV. We talk about photography as well. Now, if you shoot photographs with your well, if you shoot people, yeah, if you take photographs with your SLR camera, one of the settings on your SLR camera is the white balance. Depending on the conditions, you can set your white balance, and this will help your camera to understand the colors in the images. For example, if we shoot outside on a sunny day, we're working on different conditions. If you go inside and you shoot in the tungsten lighting, if you use the bulbs, this looks different. For example, if you take images inside, the images by default will be yellow because of the light from the bulbs. But you can change the white balance to use the tungsten lighting, and the camera will compensate, so the whites are really white, not the yellows. Now, if you shoot with SLR camera, if you shoot RAW, this is really important, if you shoot RAW, because this doesn't apply to JPEG. If you shoot RAW, then when you go into Lightroom or Photoshop or Adobe Camera Raw, you can change the white balance. So even if you were shooting with, let's say, white balance set to sunny weather or auto white balance, and you were shooting inside with the light from candles or bulbs, you can change white balance, so your images will totally change. Whites will be really white, reds will be red, not yellow. Okay? So even if you make a mistake or if you forget to change your white balance, this is a great thing about RAW. If you shoot RAW, you can change it later on in the software. Because remember, when you shoot RAW, it's just the data about the image. You're not really registering the pixels, you're just registering data about the image. Okay. Now let's move on to our next tutorial. This one will be in Adobe Photoshop, and I'm going to show you the first part on creating panoramas inside Photoshop. So let's have a look on that. Okay, let's talk about creating panoramas. We'll be using Adobe Bridge and Adobe Photoshop as well. Now, you can really easily create panoramas inside Photoshop. Okay, with all sorts of different images. Now I've got prepared two different sets of images. This is Merge One folder with a really simple example of panorama with these landscapes. I'll just make them bigger so you can see them clearly. Okay, and I've got another set. I just go to Merge Two with an image of a stadium, of inside a stadium. Now this one example is extremely difficult if you wanted to do it manually by hand. Yeah, that's why I chose to use Photoshop for that. And very often on my Photoshop courses, I get people who create panoramas, who were trying to create panoramas, and it took them so much time and it was so difficult to achieve. Now with Photoshop, it's extremely easy, especially now with the CS4 and CS5, where you can see so much improvement in the panoramas. Okay, so let's start with the first folder, Merge One. I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to select these images in Adobe Bridge first. Okay, I'm just going to select them all. Then I'll go straight to Tools, Photoshop, and Photo Merge. This will open Photo Merge dialog box inside Adobe Photoshop. Okay, if you don't have Photoshop open, this will open Photoshop first. Now it's loaded in here. photo match, and these images are loaded, so I don't need to load them anymore. And I'll just use the example of auto. I'll make sure the blend images together is checked. I'll just press OK. Now what Photoshop is going to do now is we will open every image, put it on its own layer, and then merge them all the images together. So I have 5 images here, so we'll end up with 5 layers inside the layers panel. Now Photoshop is also going to blend them in an amazing way. Well, first of all, when I was taking these images, I didn't use a tripod. I was just handheld in the camera, so they're not totally straight. Okay. Now, when you take images for the panorama, you need to remember that the images need to overlap. Theoretically, at least 10%, but the more the better. 20–25%. You can take any number of images and just put together. Now what's new in Photoshop CS5, what it's doing now is it's also using the lens profiles database. One of the new features in Photoshop CS5 is the lens profiles for lens correction. It's using the powerful database on Adobe servers, trying to work out getting the information from the metadata from the file, what lens was used and what camera was used, and trying to correct any distortions inside the image. Now what we're going to do now in just a moment is we'll look at this panorama and we'll try to work out how Photoshop merged all these images together, because it's going to create like a cutout effect, like a torn piece of paper, and we'll put each layer will have a mask, so they overlap seamlessly without any transitions. Now what we usually do with the people on the courses is we look at this image really close, we zoom in a bit, and we try to work out where one image ends and the other one begins, and it's almost impossible to find it. Okay, Photoshop just an amazing job creating this panorama. Now I'm still aligning it, and you can see the differences in terms of the color and brightness, but in just a moment this will all disappear and you have a seamless composition in the panorama. You can also see that the images are not straight, okay, because I had held the camera. Now this is the design. Now I'm going to zoom in a bit. I'll just zoom in to 50%. Yeah, there's the composition. Now if you look here, I'm just going to scroll to the left hand side and I'm going to hide the first layer to see where this layer ends and where the next one begins. Now here's how Photoshop merged it. Okay, now if you look on that, I'm going to show this layer and see if you can find where it's merging. Impossible to do. Absolutely amazing feature. Okay, good. This is just one example, and I'm going to show you another example. I'm going to close that. This time I'll go straight from Photoshop. So File, Automate, Photo Match, just to show you how you can access this from Photoshop. Okay. Then I can use Browse, Folder, and navigate to the folder and open all these images, click OK, and the rest will be the same. Okay. Now next week I'm going to show you another set of images and some other examples of panoramas inside Photoshop. But that's it for this week. So hope you enjoyed it. I'm Marek Mularczyk from SiteTrain.co.uk, and I'll back to the studio. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed this next tutorial about using Photo Match command in Photoshop to create panoramas. And this will be it for this week's episode of PhotoshopLightroomTV. Have a look on my YouTube channel, because that's where I post lots of videos, lots of tutorials. The address should appear here in the bottom of the screen, somewhere, yeah. And I hope to see you next week on episode 22. I've got some more exciting features. I've got a follow-up on Photo Match as well. So this is for today. I'm Marek Mularczyk from SiteTrain.co.uk, one of the leading experts in Adobe certified training. And this was Photoshop Lightroom TV, episode 21. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.